Last night I was watching Fade to Black, and whenever I watch it all the way through.
Jay-Z movie?
Yeah, the Kanye session. Who else did he have? He was with Timbo. He was with he's recording 99 Problems, like the concert series, Seeing Beans and all that. And it got me thinking about hip hop, like actual hip hop moments, since we've been fans of hip hop. I personally think that Fade to Black documentary coming out and it quote unquote being Jay's last album, that's one of the moments, one of my favorite hip hop moments that I can remember. Because I remember being hype about the documentary. I remember being hype about the Black album. I remember being excited about, him working with X amount of different producers. Quick, Ninth was on there. Eminem was on there. Timbo was on there. Who am I missing that produced on the Black album? Was Prince?
I don't know.
Prince wasn't on there.
Primo did Warning, didn't he?
Just Blaze.
No,
Just Blaze was on there.
Threats.
No, Ninth did Threats.
Yeah, that's right.
Threats,
Ninth did do Threats.
Pharrell was on there with Allure. So yeah, I remember that being a dope moment. I remember being excited about that. Are there any moments that stick out to you all, just in general, where you say, "Man, that was a dope moment in hip hop"? I remember being extremely excited about XYZ happening. Is there anything that just kind of?
That was definitely a moment for me. There, like
the Black album?
Even hearing that go off, I'm like, "There's no way this is Jay-Z's last. There's no way he's gonna leave like this."
Yeah,
because he was at such a high pinnacle.
Yeah.
When the Black album came out. But I will say, Get Rich or Die Trying was a moment in time that was pretty solid as far as 50 coming out. That was a sought after album. What else?
That's a good call, actually. I remember that.
Mine was more like a period of time as opposed to a moment.
To one thing, okay.
Yeah, like I can't really like pick like a moment necessarily, except for like going to that Blue and Exile concert that we went to in Chicago. That was dope.
Yes.
You know what I mean? A3C when we went, a lot of it's related to like performing and stuff too. But
do you have a certain era in mind?
Yeah. So the era for me is right around like 2003, 4, 5, 6, 7 in that kind of area, kind of pre-blog era. I remember and the reason why is because I was just discovering everything. That was like I was already familiar with Like Water for Chocolate, but that's around the time that I got familiar that Dilla did it. And so I got into learning what his past was, That's where I got hip to Murs and Ninth Wonder's album, which then turned me on to Little Brother, which then turned me on to a whole slew of West Coast music, and went down that entire rabbit hole of like Alchemist and Dilated Peoples and all the underground West Coast legends, Blue and Exile. I remember I found out about that album on a San Diego message board that I was a part of,
I think you told Pete Say who put me on.
If
I'm not mistaken.
Bro, I don't even know at this point, but what I will say is that moment in time there's just so much music discovery. And I think that's the part that I keep trying to like, when I latch onto it, like I'm never going to be able to get back to that moment.
Right.
But plus it was before we started blogging and I kind of got tired of music.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it if you haven't been there, but it's,
it's definitely, it's real. I'll say another big moment for me in hip hop was, when Wu-Tang Forever came out.
Oh man!
And going to that tour, which actually was the last time they came to Indianapolis as a group.
Yeah,
that was when did that drop? 97 or 90?
7, I always heard. But
summer 97.
Yeah, summer. Yep.
Man, that concert was epic. Like
that's a local legend.
Yeah, it was so. I can't even. I'm down there getting chills thinking about it because it was just such a moment.
Yeah.
That it was so much energy in there that you can't even really describe it, man. But it was awesome.
I will also say for me,
Double LP World Excited.
I will also say like hearing Eminem for the first time was super unique because it was like, who is this random? Because it was My Name Is was the single and it was on TRL.
Yeah.
And I remember somebody on the bus coming home from high school that doesn't even listen to hip hop music told me about it. It was some random woman. a girl, you know, but, and I just like, no, never heard of him, but just like, it was just so different. I'd never really seen like a white rapper before, you know,
He stood
in that manner.
He stood way out.
And he stood way out. He was just different. I didn't really know what to think of him, to be honest.
I didn't, honestly, when I first heard Eminem, I wasn't about to mess with him because my
weird.
name is just like, all right, look at this little blonde hair dude. Like when I was thinking of hip hop dudes that was white that would rap, I'm thinking Beastie Boys. I'm thinking Third Base.
MC Search.
Yeah, that's Third Base.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right.
Or even House of Pain, and I didn't really like House of Pain.
Yeah.
But so when I seen Eminem, and it was like, man, who is this dude? And then, I mean, if you were to go by his first song or first single, about how he really is, then you actually would have missed out on some dope shit or stuff, you know.
Yep.
You know where it is. Yeah. But anyway, it just wasn't it for me. Not that song. It was like TRL stuff.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't it. But
I think that's why we always talk about like how Eminem brought like an entire white fan base over.
Yeah.
100%.
You know, because he was just so shockingly different. Like I remember like I already listened to hip hop, but it was just like, this is different. I don't know. Like even his first single was like, I don't know. It was like kind of comical. It was like a comic book.
It was comical.
You know I mean, he had on the superhero suit with the E on it, and you know what I mean. All the crazy stuff.
There's no way I would have thought that same Eminem would have been the Eminem that we know today. There's no way.
Right.
I'm thinking. Nate Jeezy says "Bombs Over Baghdad." Was a crazy movie.
Oh yeah.
Smooth Loser said "𝗡𝗏𝗄 𝗔𝗏." Oh Lord.
Oh man.
What was 𝗡𝗏𝗄 𝗔𝗏? What was his big BT hit?
Oh
I don't even remember.
Oh man, I remember 𝗡𝗏𝗄.
Nate is right about Bombs Over Baghdad.
I'm gonna agree with him on Outkast. Period. Outkast was a group that I look forward to hearing every time they came out. Like I had to have whatever new Outkast was dropping. So yeah.
What about I'm gonna throw this at you guys. What about this one?
Country Grammar.
Country Grammar was a moment.
That was a hit.
Yeah, that was a moment.
It was just plus it was like Midwest music too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
What about let me fact check my album, make sure I'm correct. Hip hop is dead with Nas around that time when, you know,
that album did not.
I didn't care about that.
I'm talking about Black Republicans with Jay and Nas.
Okay, I mean that was a moment.
I think that was a moment too. Even though that album wasn't the craziest, it had some heat on there, but it wasn't the crazy. The album wasn't the.
That was just
album.
a moment because that just meant that the Jay-Z Nas beef was squashed.
Because you remember they had to sit down on MTV, right? And who did that interview?
They had a performance at or somewhere or another
where he brought Nas out.
Yeah,
that was a moment. And then I remember seeing the track list and it saying Black Republicans and it had Jay on it. And I'm like, oh
yeah.
And they sampled. What was the sample for that song?
I don't know.
Oh man, you know it if you hear it. Either way, I thought that was a pretty cool moment. Lone, I like yours about that era. I like that because I remember that era.
Because like, I mean, when I think about even my high school years, my high school years was something you can consider the golden age of just some of the dopest stuff I've ever heard in my life, and maybe taking that era for granted because you're living it. So it's like you're thinking everything is gonna sound like this,
right?
And it doesn't. But like between, I would say 94 to 98.
That's a good era.
A whole bunch of stuff mixed up in there. I mean, my senior year, Biggie and Tupac died my senior year. First semester, Tupac. Second semester, Biggie. That's crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And those were soundtracks for me.
Yeah.
Literally.
I mean,
that's a good era.
That's
a good era.
This whole like conversation goes back to when we were talking about how music kind of marks time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I feel like a lot of my moments are specifically related to finding out about stuff or something like that. Like I remember, I can still visualize when you picked me up when we went to play that Martin Luther King Jr. thing
at the Wigwam. Yep.
And you played Ghostface.
Supreme Clientele.
Yeah, you played the skip track like that. You know, like it stands out, and that was what 98, 9, 10, or 2000. I don't know, one of those years.
Yeah,
right,
somewhere in there.
Yeah, so because it came out in 2000, I think, or 99, 1 or 2. But so like that stands out to me. You know, like buying Jurassic 5's album and then not liking it stands out to me. You know, like
I remember being in the record store on a Tuesday when that was coming out.
Yeah.
And looking at that, and I think I ended up that was 99, because I want to say Full Clip came out the same day. Gangstar, and I was like, I'm going with this Gangstar.
So you chose better than I did.
Yeah.
Shouts to Charlie Tuna, but that Gangstar only had that Jurassic 5 only had like 2 cuts I liked.
Yeah, I was cool on that one.
Hey, I remember I know exactly where I was at. You brought up Little Brother. I know exactly who I was with and where I was at when I heard The Listening for the first time. That was a moment, because I'm like, who are these guys from, the South that sound like this? They're not supposed, on paper, they're not supposed to sound like this.
Yeah.
And it blew my mind how nice the beats were, and their chemistry, and Fonte obviously stood out. But I remember being like, I don't know who, old boy can rap too, though. I remember saying that,
right.
We were talking about that. So that was, finding Little Brother was definitely a moment.
Yeah, for me too. And so was like listening to Blue and Exile, because I held out on it for a while, because everybody that was on this message board that I was on, shouts to anybody that's listening that was on Access Hip Hop, based out of San Diego. I think it's still a record store. But like Blame One, shouts to Blame One. Like, he's a rapper. He's a personal friend of Exile. Like he was on that message board. And shouts to Ricky Raw. He was on that, linked up and done stuff with Ricky. He got us on A through C the very first time. But there's a whole bunch of musicians and stuff, and they were talking about it obviously fresh off the press, because there are people there that literally knew them. And I was like, yeah, I'll get around to it. And then I listened to it and I was like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, I slept on it for a little while too. I don't think I heard that album until like probably 2011.
Yeah, man, I remember hearing that album, and Yo Yo. I remember first time hearing that, and what's the
Hey Yo, what up, yo?
What's the joint they dropped? What's the single off that album?
Talking about The Listening?
The Listening. What was the
It's not Whatever You Say, is it?
Was it Whatever You Say?
No. It's
Speed.
Oh, Speed.
Speed. I remember hearing that.
Too fast for me.
Yeah, like I'm like, these dudes they're gonna bring it. This is great. I was remember being excited about that. So
Kendrick Lamar, Section 80 was a moment.
Yeah, did somebody say
moment. That? No, I just did.
Okay.
No, that was a moment. That whole Kendrick era before blowing up was a moment, because like literally everything he was dropping was just refreshing.
𝗀𝗃 Corinthians is
super
converted me all the way over. I listened to that song. My boy Boog was getting married, and I picked up, Brent Dean. I picked him up.
Yeah.
He picked me up at the airport. He's like, man, you got to hear this Kendrick Lamar, man. It's this 𝗀𝗃 Corinthians. BJ the Chicago Kid is on the hook. And I remember we played that song like 20 times in a row. I'm like, who is this dude? Then I went back to Overly Dedicated.
Yeah.
I believe that was the one prior to that. And, we've talked about, do they call Section 80 an album or whatever,
right.
But I remember hearing that song, and I'm like, this dude is that guy. He's about to be, one of those guys.
It was a weird moment in time. I legitimately thought, I was like, oh, Kendrick could like change the landscape of music.
Exactly. He can be one of those guys.
That was before I realized that nobody can really change the landscape.
Because honestly, I was listening to J. Cole before I was listening to Kendrick. Because Kendrick was dropping, not Kendrick, but J. Cole was dropping a lot of material on that Piff back then. So I was catching all of his mixtapes back then, and then I got hip to Kendrick.
I didn't realize how nice Cole was. I'm the opposite. I got on Cole later, but I didn't realize how nice he was until I remember the album, but I was asleep on the mixtapes that he's talking about leading up to that. So I had to go backwards and listen. I'm like, this dude been blacking out 2 or 3 years before I even found out about him. I didn't know he was that nice.
Yeah.
Like high quality bars, or just destroying everything. So
now what's Smooth Hoosier just brought up hearing Drake So Far Gone. I will attest to that was a moment for me, because hearing this dude that could rap and somewhat hold a note here and there, it was dope. It was dope as a whole project, as an album, whatever you want to call it.
It was a fire joint with Lil Brother on that.
Yeah, Drake had the formula to blow. I mean, and he's proved that he could do it.
100%.
I mean, he's still here. I mean, a lot of his stuff sounds the same.
Yeah,
it's not as experimental as So Far Gone and Comeback Season.
Yep.
But I mean,
I would agree that that's a moment too, because he had there was a groundswell around him. It started to, people started talking about him, and when I heard that joint with Lil Brother, I'm like, oh man, he reaching out to Lil Brother. That's dope.
Mm-hmm.
And so he did reach out to 𝗲𝗲, is what you're saying.
No, he's still 𝗲𝗲. I ain't backing off that. And it hurts my soul to know if 𝗲𝗲 could have been on Lord Knows. Oh man.
Yeah, 𝗲𝗲 was a whole wave.
That bothers me.
A whole wave for me too. Like finding out about 𝗲𝗲 and Little Brother, like he's still my favorite rapper.
Yeah, Foreign Exchange.
Just the whole, again.
Yeah.
It started with that Murs and Ninth Wonder Murs 16 album, which I think is a classic album.
That Murs 316?
Because that exposed me to everybody that Murs was kind of connected to on the West Coast, and everybody that Little Brother and Ninth Wonder was connected to. And it was a lot of people. It's amazing what collaborations can do.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you on that.
That was a good moment in time.
Yeah, man. Like you said, we can't get it back. So it's good to at least think about those memories. Those were some good times. Classic material.